Let's freak out! Today we're going to talk about the agents that need a nerf. Now tomorrow this will be accompanied by a video of who needs a buff, and when we're talking about the agents that need a nerf and why they need nerfing and how I would nerf them, well of course this is all in the context of patch 11.08, which nerfed a lot of agents already, right? So my hope for the game right now is that actually a lot of agents are actually kind of at their floor and won't be nerfed, but there were a few agents that slipped through the cracks. Most notably the agents who were already good. For some reason Riot thought, let's nerf the agents that aren't that good, but keep the ones that are already good pretty good. So we're mostly going to be talking about those agents today. Let's start with an agent that everyone knows is strong, and a nerf is, I would say, almost definitely coming at some point in the next year. It's Yoru. And when you think about Yoru, there are some important questions to ask, and I've already made a video about one of these, is that should we nerf agents like Yoru if they're fun? That is an important question, right? Because Yoru is a very strong agent and has become more and more popular. And I think if, we leave Yoru as is, his pick rate will be very high, pretty much no matter what the map pool is. The thing is with Yoru is he does allow you to play double duelist, which is, I think, a fun play style. And it's something that we haven't really seen, right? On a lot of these maps, double duelist hasn't been that popular really on some maps ever. But Yoru is allowing that to be the case. And by nerfing Yoru, you would probably take all of that double duelist stuff and really put it away if you nerfed Yoru significantly. So with that in mind, is nerfing Yoru a good idea for the game? Well, I still think yes, because Yoru is very strong and his pick rate will be very, very high if you don't. But I don't think you need to significantly nerf Yoru, right? I think this is an opportunity for Riot to go, we need to nerf this agent, but let's not kill this agent. Right, let's keep him good, let's keep him strong. But when you think about how to nerf Yoru, yes, Yoru's utility is strong, but there is another issue that Yoru has that I don't see many people talking about, which is that Yoru, especially in the context of patch 11.08, where, most agents' utility and their cooldowns got nerfed and all of that stuff, Yoru has more utility than most other agents, right? Yoru has 5 bits of utility. If you actually go through the entire Valorant roster, outside of the controllers who, maybe are a little bit different because they have to have multiple smokes to work, Harbor lol. If you look at the rest of the agent pool, there's only 2 agents that have 5 bits of utility. It's Yoru and Cypher. Those are the only 2. And generally what you're going to see people say is that Yoru, oh, just take away a TP, right? Go from 2 TPs to 1 TP. Now, I am actually against that for the reasons that I brought up before, that Yoru is fun, and also the TPs are kind of the crucial part of Yoru's character, right? They're the central theme of Yoru in general, the faking of it, is it real, is it fake, all of that. I would actually much prefer to take away a flash than take away a TP. One, because I think that the flash isn't as strong as an ability, so it would be a smaller nerf and therefore keep Yoru good, but also I think it's just less important to his kit. And versus other agents, Yoru's TPs, are kind of a unique part to him and how they work. Yoru's flash, I mean, there's plenty of agents with flashes. If you take away a flash, if you're looking like Yoru versus a KO, and Yoru often is competing with agents like KO or Sky or, whoever, another initiator with flashes, well, if you take away a flash, maybe that's a reason to pick that initiator. Yoru with 2 TPs and 1 flash versus KO, you've got 2 flashes, you've got a knife, you're creating more differences there between a Yoru and someone like a KO, which I think again would be more healthy for the game because then you allow people to go more in for different playstyles. So that would be my personal suggestion for Yoru. Take away a flash, give him less utility, but I still think even with just 1 flash, Yoru would still be strong and still be worth picking. Okay, next up we got an agent who I also made a video about, potentially having a 100% pick rate if the right map pool came about. The pick rate of this agent has historically always been very high. And of course I'm talking about Viper. Now, they have given Viper kind of countless nerfs from kind of peak Viper, and to me it's kind of similar to like when they were nerfing peak Chamber and they kept doing stuff like, oh, let's take away a trip and let's make the trips, range restricted, and let's make the headhunter bullets cost 50 more. It's like, what are you guys doing? You're like fiddling with all the edges of this stuff and you're not actually tackling the problem, which was the TPs. When they finally nerfed the TPs, Chamber was then nerfed. Right? The same thing has happened for Viper. Viper, people always say, is this Senti controller hybrid. And what they've decided to do to nerf Viper is, let's just keep nerfing the Senti part of Viper. right? Let's take away a snake bite. Let's, reduce the Viper decay on the walls, multiple times. They've kept just doing that and doing that and doing that to the point where when people say that Viper now is a Senti, controller hybrid, I roll my eyes because it's just not true. I mean, KO has probably more stall than Viper at this point, if we're being honest, right? Like a KO knife that hits all 5 players is going to shut down an exec better than Viper can. You both have 1 molly. Like, is KO a Senti initiator hybrid? I don't think so. Viper right now, what makes Viper strong is not the Senti part of Viper's kit, it's the controller part of Viper's kits. It's being able to just put up a wall constantly, up and down, and threaten lurks throughout the map consistently, which again, specifically within the new patch that came out, that nerfed all the cooldowns and stuff, just made Viper even more of a problem, because now Viper versus the other agents in the game gets to do things that other agents could only dream of, right? That is Viper's problem, and that is the issue that they need to tackle. So, how would I actually go about doing that? Well, the easiest way of doing that would be to kind of not fully rework Viper, but, pretty heavily rework Viper. Maybe you, take the orb away from actually being in the fuel. Maybe it's just a throwable smoke. Maybe you do other things, right? Like, go for a full Viper rework. I don't think they're going to do that. So outside of like, some kind of bigger rework, how would you actually go about fixing Viper? Well, I think it has to come from the fuel regen time. Now, again, Viper is in a very odd spot, and this is why Viper is so difficult to change, is because Riot has to think of it from, in pro play, Viper is used often as a double controller and is really, really good at that role. But Riot also needs to think about Viper changes in terms of like, but what if Viper is played as a solo controller as well? Viper still needs to be able to, function as a solo controller. And to be fair, even in pro play, right? If Icebox came back, you would see solo Viper. To me, that has to come from the fuel regen time. Again, that would put Viper more in line with, the nerfs that we've seen in the actual, patch 11.08, where all of the cooldowns went up, right? That would bring Viper more in line. But then you might say that Viper's, ability to, work as a solo controller, might become very, very difficult if the fuel regen time, increased a lot like Neon's did, for instance. So to counteract that, I actually think they could bring some of the Senti stuff back. I actually think that they could, kind of bring back some of the things that made Viper a Senti controller hybrid in the first place that they keep nerfing. It would also probably help Viper in ranked, right? And you would kind of bring down maybe the pro play elements, but bring up maybe the ranked elements, which I think is a big problem with Viper as well right now in terms of how she works. And then the third big agent to talk about, of course, is Omen, whose pick rate has been exceptionally high. Now, there are people out there, there are whispers out there from the people that maybe we finally reached a point where actually Astra is as good as Omen. And to be honest, I can somewhat agree. I think that the highest level played Astra is getting close to the highest level you could get with Omen, right? If you're really, really insanely good at Astra. However, the average level Astra at pro level versus the average level of Omen, I think is still a massive gap. And I still think that most teams are going to play Omen most of the time because they're more familiar with it, it's easier, and on an average day, you're going to get more value from Omen than you will Astra. And so, with that in mind, even if you are the biggest Astra fan in the world and you think that Astra is actually better than Omen by a lot, people are going to stick to what they know, right? This has happened constantly throughout this game, right? It happened with Jett for a long time. Jett, after they nerfed the Jett dash, wasn't that great. But people still picked Jett a lot because they just didn't know how to play the other ones, right? You have to give people a significant reason to go away from comfort. And so I think that for that reason, even if, we are agreeing that, actually Astra and Omen are getting close together now, Omen still needs another nerf to kind of force people in different directions. And hopefully the next agent that comes out is a controller as well. And hopefully, they can also fill that void. But I do think that we need that nerf for Omen just to allow people to explore other options again, and then buff Omen in the future. Now, there are a couple of nerfs for Omen that I have suggested in the past with, no one is ever happy when you talk about Omen nerfs. Everyone always thinks, oh, that will kill the character, right? The first one I don't think would kill the character at all, but I do think is something that Riot should have looked at for a while, which is about the paranoia and how the paranoia actually interacts with people, which is that if the paranoia hits you on the edge of it, it blinds you for less time, right? Like a Sova shock dart, and the way that that works, right? If you get hit by the edge of a shock dart, you take less damage than if you get hit by the middle of it. Similar for a paranoia, right? If you get hit by the little edge of it, you're only near side for a tiny bit of time, right? If you get hit by the middle of it, then, you're hit hard. right? And that again would further what Riot always says that they want utility to do, that, you know, they want to reward players who are good with their utility and using it thoughtfully and all of that. You know, the changes that they make never actually do that, but that's what they always say. This would be an actual change that would make that the case. But if we wanted to go in a more extreme direction in terms of nerfing Omen and, you know, really bring him down before potentially buffing him later down the line, one thing that I think you could do is, again, similar to Yoru, hey, Omen has 5 bits of utility, let's take one away. We could take away a TP, right? That, I think, would be a significant nerf to Omen, and it's kind of the level of nerf that I think would then make people think, oh, I should start playing other things. Do I think that that is a good nerf necessarily? No, because again, we talked about this with Omen as well. Omen is fun, the TPs are fun. I don't like nerfing things that are fun. And then lastly, and just quickly here, I do want to touch on Silver and Fade. Now, I'm not saying that Silver and Fade do need a nerf, but I do think that there is a little bit of a problem. There is a little bit of wonkiness here with the fact that, you know, on most maps, you're going to see Silver or Fade on almost every single one. Combined, Silver and Fade's pick rate does get, you know, close to 100%. And is that a problem? It's not necessarily a problem with the two agents themselves, but it maybe is a bigger problem in terms of the overall game. Now, I think that this could potentially be fixed with the addition of perhaps a third Recon initiator, right? Whatever the next initiator is, if you make it another Recon initiator that kind of sits somewhere in between a Silver and Fade, could that work, right? And just instead of just having like a duality of like you're always picking Silver or you're always picking Fade, if you add in a third option, it would just add in more variety. And yeah, maybe the Recon class does add up to 100% between the 3 of them, and that's fine, right? Maybe we just say that's fine because with 3 of them, there's enough difference and it plays out differently enough to where that's okay. So those are the agents that I would give a nerf to. I know anytime I do these videos and suggest these videos that, you know, people, they're always going to say, yeah, you're wrong. And that's totally fine.